Looking a little scruffy today. It is 7:02 and we are live. Got my dinosaur shirt on, and tonight we're talking about one of my favorite subjects, moonshine, and more importantly, that we ran moonshine in an LS motor, and it was like 17 different kinds of awesome. Honestly, I thought we were going to have all sorts of problems with tuning this, but thanks to James Short at Short Tuning, he did an awesome job. He's up there with Brian Tooley, and they were using a flex fuel sensor and his obviously knowledge of knowing how to tune it. They're using a Haltech, and it worked out great. I was surprised at how well the flex fuel sensor would monitor our change in fuel, because we had run this motor on E85 and then also ran it with this not E85 moonshine. This was about 100, somewhere in the 155 to 160 proof. So it was stuff that the guys from Bardstown Bourbon did, and obviously it wasn't bourbon, but they had distilled it a bunch, and so it was fairly high up there. Not quite as high as some of the stuff that we've seen that people have partaken in back in their youth, like Everclear. I remember I told some good stories to the guys at Brian Tooley Racing about Everclear, and maybe I'll tell them to you guys one night too, because we used to go up to the stuff wasn't legal. They couldn't sell it in California, and I don't know if they can. It was 190 proof, and we used to have to drive to Nevada to go up and get it, because right across the border at the liquor store that we would go to, we'd normally go up there when we would go skiing and stuff. When we would go to the Sierras, we would go to Heavenly Valley and go skiing. So we'd always try to pick some up when we were there, because it was right across the border. So we could get it up there, and that stuff is seriously potent, and also mixes very well with Slurpees, in case anybody was interested. And we had some of that back when I was a little bit younger than I should have been to be drinking that when we were in high school for around graduation time. It was pretty fun. So there's some good stories with that stuff. Guys used to do the bathtub punch they would make with that Everclear stuff, and it was fairly serious stuff. But this was not bad. So this was 100, and like I said, between 155 and 160. The guys from Bardstown Bourbon were just awesome. They came over and they were just as excited as we were. They were giddy about, seeing, because it's cool to be able to see the motor run. I mean, I've heard stories from all of these guys. I'll bring this down a little bit so we can check out the shirt, check out the dinosaur shirt. It was awesome seeing how excited those guys were, because it's like coming to the dyno. Every time you do that, you're like, oh yeah, now we want to try this, and I want to try this, and I want to try this. So as soon as they saw that, hey, this is a reality and this is actually going to work, and not only is it going to work, it's actually going to work fairly well, that now they want to try, something that's still a little bit more, and they can get it up to that 190 probably level and see if that's better. And then also we want to try going the other way. We want to try going down to 120 or something, because we want to see where the point is where it will no longer work, where it will no longer combust. The interesting thing is, I don't know if any of you guys saw that that I did a Instagram post of me trying to blow fire with this, and I wasn't able to do it. And we've done it before with a number of things, but the interesting thing is we tried doing this after that stuff had sat in the fuel cell for a little while, kind of open. There's obviously air in there because the thing wasn't completely full. But after sitting for a while, it kind of outgasses and it becomes less flammable, because we know that because we had some fresh stuff that was sealed up and we lit that, and that lit fine. But the other stuff was much less excited about being lit on fire, which is why I couldn't blow the fire with it. The cool thing and the thing that we all got to be talking about, which was interesting, was the fact that E85 obviously is the alcohol and the gas, but this stuff is the alcohol, and primarily, there are other things too, but primarily water. So we have water injection going on, but the other thing that we have is something that's not combustible. So it displaces what's there. And the other thing that happened is, because of that, and because of the change in BTUs that are associated with the moonshine versus the 85, the same way that E85 has not the same caloric content as gasoline does, so it takes more E85 to make the same amount of power. Now with the moonshine, we stepped it up even more, so it takes a lot more moonshine to make the same power output. And trust us, we tried different air fuel mixtures, and we tried different timing levels and stuff to try to see what it liked and see what it responded to. because we didn't know. we started at E85 and then go plus and go minus on both things. And, the dyno will tell you what the motor likes. But the interesting thing is that with the water, we thought, oh, okay, it's going to want more timing now because we're quenching that somewhat. It didn't seem to respond very much to timing. Now, we didn't go to 40 degrees. This was an LS motor, and it wanted 28 or 29 degrees total timing, and it seemed to work best there with both of those combinations. The other interesting thing, and one thing I didn't talk about in the video, and this is only for the guys that showed up here, so you guys that are watching this video get something that the other guys didn't get watching the other video. And if you haven't watched the other video, make sure to go do that. And also make sure to hit the like button, because we're at 97 and 34. So we're only like 33%. And that's not nearly good enough. You guys really can do better than that. Two things I want to talk about. One is the amount of fuel flow. To give you an idea how much more fuel it took when we were running this thing at the run with the 85, this thing made about 440 horsepower once it was tuned and working. This thing actually had a set of kind of hand-ported 862 heads on it, and it had a small Brian Tooley racing cam and a Trailblazer SS. It was a Gen 4 5.3 with the a flat top with valve reliefs, but because it was a VVT motor. So this was an old junkyard motor, and we ran it with E85, and making that power required, because they're monitoring fuel flow, 315 pounds an hour of E85. So that would be more than gas. And I don't have a gas number because we didn't run it on regular gas. But to put that into perspective, 315 pounds an hour it took to make that power with the 85. Now, it made less power. It made 416 or 17 or 18 or so with the Moonshine, but it required 533 pounds an hour. So it had a brake specific of like 1.2 or 1.3. It was, you wouldn't get good fuel mileage doing it this way, but it took a lot of fuel to do it. So we had to go up to basically giant size injectors. We had ASNU injectors. They were 1050s, I think. And we were up at like 72 or so percent duty cycle on this thing. So we were going through a lot of fuel. And the interesting thing is, again, this is another point that I didn't make in the video, so it's for you guys only. There was a change in airflow between these motors. Now, we would expect a change in airflow from the change in power, but which way did it go? Did we not make the power because we didn't have the airflow, or did we not have the airflow because we didn't make the power? And the real question is, because we had to flow so much more fuel, did this thing not make the power that it made on E85 because we were displacing so much more of the airflow with the extra fuel? I mean, you're talking about an from 315 to 533, let's say that's 200. So we were flowing 2/3 more fuel. That's a lot. And we weren't using all of that. And some of it was water, so it's not combusting. So did we lose power because of the water? Did we lose power because of the airflow? Now, the airflow went down from 607 CFM down at the peak, because the airflow goes up with engine speed, down to 630 CFM. Went from 607 CFM with the Moonshine to 630 CFM with the E85. So again, it's an interesting question, and it's hard to actually pinpoint what that is. And I want everybody to chime in and let me know what you think it is. And let me know, do you think it's because we're displacing that air? Is it the quench that we're putting out from the water? Even though we tried more timing, that didn't seem to help. What do you guys think it is? It's an interesting thing. So yeah, 190 to 200 proof it is possible. Like I said, the Everclear stuff is 190, so that's 95% alcohol. It's getting up near the problematic area. Yeah, Sir Johnson, Moonshine will do that to you. The real stuff. I've got some good Everclear stories, and that's essentially what that is, from different people who have tried it and drank just way too much, way more than they should have. It's pretty interesting stuff. I know, Scuba Sam. That's what we did. We did sample it, and it tasted it tasted like you'd expect moonshine to taste. What we really wanted to do, what I wanted to do was, and we all mentioned this one because when we first started it up and we're running with the moonshine, one of the things that we all went in to do was smell the exhaust. We wanted to see what it smelled like. Now, I think we needed to have moonshine that had some sort of flavoring in it, with, cherries or apple pie or any of the popular stuff. So then the exhaust would smell like, Pop Tarts or whatever. It would be kind of awesome. Yeah, boosted. If you look at the reading in the video, the fuel sensor was pegged at 100%. So we think that basically it was kind of near the methanol amounts. See, Texas Racer, it all works out good. You make good stuff in it, you can run the motor on it. The interesting thing though is, and I got this a lot from guys who are saying, "Oh yeah, the guys back in the day, the moonshiners, they ran their car on it." And I'm thinking, how much would you have to jet your carburetor up on your flathead Ford, or let's say that it was a small block Chevy or whatever, to get it to run when that thing needs? And the thing is, we're going from E85 to moonshine. If you were going from gas to moonshine, you might have to double the fuel flow to get there, to make enough fuel to actually run. And then obviously you'd have to tune it and stuff. So I don't know how much of that is smoke and mirrors and conjecture and tall tales, but it will work. So it theoretically could work. Randall made a good point here. It made a little less power, but I bet the tops of the pistons look good from the steam cleaning. We took this apart because now they have that motor apart with a different configuration that we're trying to run high RPM with. So we've changed the heads on it. So when we took those heads off, they're like crystal clean, and so are the tops of the pistons. A water separator filter help. I maybe if it would actually do that. I don't know if it will separate the water from the moonshine. I probably will do more videos on a 4.3 liter V6. I like those little motors. I want to build another one. I'm going to do propane with the meth injection 4.3 liter with a cam. What cam would be best with the propane? I don't think that the cam is going to be determined by the octane or the design of the fuel. The camshaft is still going to be determined by what RPM you want to run and how much power you're going to want to make, and the things that you're going to team with it. Are you going to run a dual plane intake manifold? Are you going to run ported heads? Where do you want the motor to make power? That's still going to be determined by the camshaft. Whether you feed it with propane or gasoline, that's not going to make a difference. Tom is saying that the power went down because the burn or the combustion happens in the gaps between the particles. The water particles kill the transfer of explosion particle to particle. Alcohol has oxygen in the compound. It's likely that the moonshine chemically accounts for a large portion of what is displaced. Do they remove the water from E85? No, there's some in there too, but not nearly as much, because instead of having the extra 15% of E85, and we may have not even had E85 because I think it came from a pump, so it could vary. I don't know if they actually measured it. I'd have to ask James about that. But the extra stuff, the other 15% of E85, is gasoline and not water. So there's a lot of water in moonshine, relatively speaking, compared to E85. That's a good question. Was there water dripping from the exhaust? The way that the mufflers are, there would have to be a lot of it for it to drip out, because I don't think that the muffler was the lowest point, but that's a good point. Try it with boost, you will more airflow. Mustang Crazy, I don't know. I've actually never run M1 on anything. I've never tried it. I've been there when Mahovitz has run methanol on some of the crazy stuff that he's done, but I've never tried it on anything. Omar, the relative air fuel stays the same. Like if we were to measure it all on a gas scale, let's say that we wanted all of them to be 11.2. It's just that the stoic value is different for the different fuels. And I'm not exactly sure what the stoic value is of moonshine with with that much water. I'm not sure what it is. So we just tried where E85 was and just added fuel till we got to a comparable air fuel ratio, and then we started adding and subtracting it to see what would happen. Yeah, pure O2 is not a good idea. What was the question? ProCharge Mopar Magnum and turbo testing some spare chains. I like it. Thanks. I appreciate it. I do need to run either a 318 or a 360 ProCharge Mopar. And I was also looking today for some 440 stuff that I need to order from Summit. Come on, come back. Man, my techniques, I'm losing it. Come on. Let's see. 6.0 injectors versus 5.3 injectors. They're different. No, they're the power outputs are different for those motors, so they would use different injectors in them. That's probably available online. You could probably find that. Dewey, a 408, a 4 1/8 is a 4125 bore, and you can't do that with a stock block. You could do a 4030 bore, which makes it into a 408. If you go to a 4125 bore, then that makes it into a 427, and you don't want to do that. Yeah, you do definitely don't want to drink nitromethane. So what's going on here? Come on. Why is it not focusing? Come on. Come on, work with me. Let's see. Pure oxygen is really not a good idea. The nitrous oxide is much better. It's much safer. The guys that were doing the initial testing back in the days when they were looking at this were the guys that were doing it for aviation for World War II. They went through all the piston development and they tried all of these different compounds. And oxygen makes power, but it was very volatile and hard to control. The nitrous oxide was the best thing that they tried. Was the best thing that worked. Yep, that's true. As soon as you open the bottle, it absorbs water from the air. Aaron, the nice thing about E85 is it usually costs less than 91, but you have to use more of it. So, but the other thing is that you can run a lot more static compression with E85 because it's higher octane. Yep, Tom, that's right. The sawdust stuff will, if you get the right combination of air and fuel, which the sawdust would be the fuel, it will ignite. Look at the grain silos, same thing. Graham, I haven't done anything on the Buick yet. We have to put it back together. Wisconsin's here. Best cam for a stock 454 Gen. I need to figure out what's going on with my camera. That's better. Best cam for a stock 454 Gen 5 with ported heads and an intake. What ported heads are they? They're not the ported stock heads, right? Are they ported peanut port heads? Then I would put something mild in it, like the 274. Have you ever messed with a Cryo 2 intercooler spray system? Is that spraying CO2 or nitrous on an air to water or an air to air intercooler? If so, yes, we have done that. Dewey, you can. You just need an aftermarket block to put a 4125 bore in. Tim's right. The storage capacity was one of the criteria when they were looking at the stuff for aviation, because obviously you have to put it in a plane and you have to take off, and it has to be there, and you have to transport it, and you're not using it all the time, and they don't jettison those bottles. That stays with the plane. So having the storage and having it be usable and having it be available a lot, so that you don't use, just like in a situation like in a power dive or trying to get a very high ceiling to get away from somebody when somebody's shooting at them. So that stuff is very important. So they looked at all of those criteria to make sure that they were using the right thing. People's lives were at stake, so they put a lot of effort in. You drum of E99, nice. Best head and intake combo for a small block forward. Juan, you got to tell me what you're doing with it, and what size small block forward, and how high do you want to rev it, and all that stuff. Oh, the Big Island's in house. What's up? Big Hawaii. Actually, it depends on how you're measuring that. If you're measuring it at a boost level, you usually make more power with a higher compression. Tom says that the camera is getting a reflection off the glasses. Yeah, Ginger Squash. If you look up at the and that's a great name, by the way. If you look, that video should be up. I ran it's an intercooler ring that you put on the air-to-air intercooler. The guys from Nitrous Express did that, and we did test it, and it didn't lower the charge temperature a lot, but I think that I could have done it better. I put it right against the intercooler, and I think that if I would have stood it off a little bit, that it probably would have been more effective. And obviously we were using nitrous. You could also use CO2. There's a more effective use of nitrous. Just put it in the motor, on the turbo motor, and it really, really likes that. But what you can do on a air to air is you can cold soak the core, and then if you take off down the track, it will be very, very cold, and then you could spray it also while you're running. So that works. Richard, can you use a 67 Big Black Chevy cam and a 65, 66 where the factory cam had a groove in the rear? I think that you have to. Kevin, I want to say that you can go one way but not the other, and now I can't remember which one is which. In California, the E85 is a good bit less than than regular 91 is. Goodman, that actually varies. Sometimes the gasoline that they cut the E85 with is really, really low grade stuff. The nice thing about racing E85 is they cut it with race fuel, so it's even higher octane, and it's better, and it's more consistent. But you do have to pay a lot more for it. It's more like the cost of race gas. The Big Bang K24 is coming. So, Witness, how do you gain power from spraying CO2 directly into the exhaust of the turbo? Manitou, yes. I talked to Jim Bell about this a lot, and they use dry ice and acetone, but it's really pretty volatile though. I'm gonna actually try liquid nitrogen. What do you think is the best compression for a turbo 4.3 build? About 15 pounds and hoping for 450 horsepower. Anywhere in the 9 to 10 to 1 range is fine. Yeah, the cooling the fuel is also a good alternative. With E85, I think that I honestly think that the gain from fuel cooling would probably, it'd be an interesting test. I think it would be less than fuel cooling, than the gains that you would get from cooling gasoline fuel, I think. But it would be something I would want to test. Progressive nitrous setup works good. Well, somebody tell me how spraying CO2 into the exhaust changes the spool rate of the turbo. Somebody tell me how that science works. Mark, that's a good point. Watch your fingers with with. I'm thinking you were talking about nitrous. I hope you were. That's one thing I did was when I was holding I had the ring that the guys from Nitrous Express sent, and I was cooling I had the intercooler, the air intercooler on the ground, and I was taking a video of activating it so we could watch it spray. And I had my fingers holding it down and activated it. And guess what? Negative 129 degrees on your skin is not really good. It's really, really cold. Big block 4 with iron heads. What compression? That's going to depend on a couple of things. What heads they are, what the piston shape is, what the quench looks like, how far down they are. Is it at zero deck? What the camshaft is. There's a lot of things besides just static compression. They're going to determine what you can run on 91. If you run a lot of camshaft, you can run a lot more static compression with 91. And with E85, you can run another point or two, or maybe 3 points of static compression. Yeah, everybody's saying the same thing that I told you guys about the E85 and the gas that they use. It's just crappy gas, and they're saying that they use it to help the ignition process, the initial ignition process. You want to see a motor run off Everclear? Well, we know that this work, and this is only 155 or 160 proof. We know that the Everclear would be even better. 190 proof should make a little more power, we think. Yeah, that's why some Rick said that acetone is 4 times more explosive than gas, and that's why they didn't, the dry ice and acetone thing, they know can get very cold, but it's just not, it's not good. It's not a good idea. It's like using hydrazine. Turbo Blue 110 octane. Is Turbo Blue 100 octane? Is that alcohol then? And then you're mixing with 93. 93 is actually probably pretty good. That's probably better than the stuff that they use on E85. Liquid nitrogen is what I want to try. It's not obviously, it's very safe to work with, but I want to see something that's at the extreme. Like when the guys run the compressed air supercharger, the charge temperature is I think less than 0 going into the motor, which is pretty frosty. The problem with dry ice is the outgassing on it, so you've got to vent for that. I know, John. 150 watching and 83 likes. Come on, dude. What about pure oxygen to cool the intercooler? Super hot by you. Again, the anything that the problem with spraying stuff, like if you spray nitrous through the intercooler while the car's running, and it can ingest some of that wherever the inlet is into the turbo, you're definitely gonna improve the power that way. But a lot of places frown on that. Old Deuce, that might there might be something to that. If you use race gas in it can disrupt the ethanol burn. But I think that because they're running that, anybody running a race version of the E85 or E90 or Ignite or these things, they're running it at such a high boost level and stuff that that's maybe not a problem. Mark, that's why we want to use it, because it's very, very cold. And what I want to do is compare it to the way that I'm going to configure it. I'm hoping I can compare it to an intercooler with nothing, with water, with ice water, and then with something very, very cold. Yeah, hydrazine is John. You're right. Hydrazine is nuts. It's bad, and I like he's always doing the squirrel references. If you take a look through the history books of hot rodding, you'll see there are lots of people that were injured with the hydrazine stuff. Oh, okay, so it's turbo blue as race gas. So you're just cutting down the race gas. I thought you were making your own version of E85 or E95 or E100. Yeah, Rick, the test that the engine masters did, it really liked the cooler charge temp, but they didn't try it with E85 though, and I would like to see the difference between chilling the E85 versus chilling regular. I think they were using 91 when they were doing it. It might cool the. I mean, you might get that's something we're gonna have to try, Mark, is with what's we're never gonna see what's happening. And our idea was to run an air to water before that to pre-cool it, but we'll have to see what happens. I'd like to try it without, but I was thinking that we're gonna have to run dual cores, which is another test that I wanted to do anyway. We want to do the idea was to run a standard air to water that we run the dyno water through, and then a secondary one, both of them sized enough so that we hopefully don't present a restriction in the setup. This is what we wanted to do in our Bonneville car. So we wanted to do this for, I don't know, 15 years or so. And it's something that we were going to try when we did the stuff with the guys from Volkswagen. So we were going to run two intercoolers. So one of them was going to be just running with regular water, and the other one was going to be run with ice water, so that we could get a lot of cooling done where the water is the hottest, and then do a secondary cooling to hopefully get more. And I haven't done it yet, so I want to see if that's actually going to work. Yeah, I'm not going to step up to hydrazine. I've tried propylene oxide because guys were doing that when I was showing stock racing to try to get a little bit of an advantage. But we tried it on the dyno, and I didn't really see anything, and so we ended up not using. I don't think Carrillo rods. Maybe the Bullet Series Carrillo rods might be, but I thought that the Carrillos were made here. Yeah, they were saying it was nitro, but I don't know how you get nitromethane. I'm sure that that's what they were supposed to be talking about. Nitromethane and gas, I don't think mix very well. Have you ran the Elgin Sloppy Stage 2 chem on anything other than a 4.8? Are you just brand new to the channel? Come on, take a look at this 6-liter test where I ran that and compared that to 3 other different camshafts. Let's see, would a 20 to 50-ish horsepower shot of nitrous more effectively for charge cooling than to cool the intercooler with CO2? Neither one of those worked very well, which is why I tested both of them, Nick. A 20 to 50 horsepower shot of nitrous, although it's very cold at negative 129 degrees, there's not enough of it to cool the charge air. Unless you're trying to cool a motor that's only making 50 horsepower, then it works very well. But if you're trying to cool an 800 or 900 or 1,000 horsepower, you have all of that airflow, and then you're adding that's hot, and then you're adding a little bit of negative 129, and it just doesn't work very well. When we tested it on the turbo motor, it was only about 30 degrees, but it made lots of power because that's what nitrous does, but not as an intercooler very well. Yeah, Opie, we couldn't get the 190 stuff. You could buy 151 and Bacardi, which is what we would get sometimes, but the 190 stuff, the Everclear, and then Mountain Clear, we would get Mountain Clear because Mountain Clear was like the low dollar generic version of Everclear because Everclear, that's big money. Yeah, if you're running M1, you can add nitro to that because it works well with an alcohol-based fuel, but not very well with gas. Yes, toluene and maybe toluene too. Maybe it was toluene, but they were using that back in the Formula One days when they had a maximum octane rating of the fuel that they could use. And it was only like I can't remember. It was very low. It was 95 or 100 RON, I think. I remember back in the turbo era. But they were using that and either toluene or toluene, and they were using it on the Formula car, the turbo motors, and it had an effective octane of I don't know, pick a number, 120 probably, because they were running 50, 60 pounds of boost in those things. It was crazy. Now, Matt, is that because they're in they're in the southern hemisphere that makes it different? Clear Springs, okay. I've never heard of that, but it sounds like another good one. U.S. Virgin Islands, nice. Okay, Andy, 102 was it? Okay. I was thinking it was 100, but dude, headshot. Respect from Australia. I have a Commodore with a 3800, a turbocharged running 85, making 846. That's good. That's good power. Crystal clear in Texas. 196 proof crystal clear back in the 80s. Everything's got to be bigger in Texas, right? If somebody has 190, then they got to have 196. Thir 34 psi. That's a lot of boost. 57. I've never raced at 57 degrees below zero. I think that the only time I've ever been in a temperature like that was in Oregon, and that was only with the wind chill factor, which the wind was blowing. We were in negative numbers, and then at the top of the hill with the wind chill factor was blowing 900 miles an hour, whatever. They were saying that the wind chill factor was down in the 40s or 50s, but it was really cold. I've never seen one of those dial a pump ones. I've never seen that where it actually mixes the lead. I didn't know that they would allow the lead to flow by itself. But but they were giving us lead paint to eat as kids, so it all worked out. Oh, winter ice drags, cool. With the spikes on the tires and stuff, Tom, that's pretty cool. Yeah, Kyle, check the if you can you monitor the tune there? Can you monitor and see? I don't think it's an air fuel thing. It's probably going to be a timing thing. See how much, maybe there's a lot of timing in it there. Any reviews are here on Wilk CNC 243 317 heads? No, but there's a lot of really, really good ported 243 and C317 heads by now, because it's been decades. There's lots of good programs out there, and I doubt anybody's going to find anything magic on those. There's lots and lots of good ones, and lots of them that flow 325 or 330 CFM. So you can make a ton of power with ported versions of those. Just take a look at the video I have up where we tested all of the factory, or not all the factory, but a ton of different cathedral port LS heads, various versions of those, and there's a set of ported 243s there. 231, 242, 32 degrees, 116 LSA, 645. Too big for an L83. GPI rods and pistons. I don't know how much. Do you have a lot of valve relief in that thing? Because that's a really big cam for an L83. You don't need to. I don't know how much kind of power you're trying to make. GPI and pistons, and S480. You can top out an S480 with a lot less camshaft than that on an L83. The guys from Brian Tooley just made over 500 with an L83. And I think that cam was probably in the 220 range at 50, but it was a VVT cam. Oh, Tom, cool. We're world record snowmobile V8 class, turbo LS powered Arctic Cat, 180 in the 1,000-foot. I've watched some of those because I've been up to. We used to race in Bowmanville, and there was a place that had they had snowmobile drags there. This was not in the snow though. This was when it was warm, so they were running on an asphalt track. But it was amazing how fast they were going. I don't think that they were going 180. Timing is about 29 degrees before it pulls back to 21. Yeah, that's a lot of. But 29 at part throttle, at easy throttle, should not be a lot. Yeah, Dana, the problem with getting it past that 190 level is that it just becomes really labor intensive and cost prohibitive. Rex, that's probably a good idea if you have a lot more piston to wall clearance and let the thing warm up a little bit. I have a lot of mechanical empathy, so I like letting them warm up anyway. So what I do is I walk out and start my truck, and then the dogs always want to come with me. We have the 2 golden retrievers, and then I go back and open the tailgate and let them jump in and help the male dog up. He's getting older. He can't jump all the way up. The female can jump up, and let them do that. And then, I give the truck a little bit of time to warm up. It's not, I mean, it's 80 degrees here today, so it's beautiful. But, it's chilly in the morning. It's get below 70 in the morning. So yeah, Shannon Motorsports Park. That's what it is. That's what I ran. Formula 2000. There was a racing school up there that we raced in and drove at. It was fun. Maybe Shannonville. Yeah, not Bowmanville's most part. I've also raced there. That's why I'm thinking of that. We've raced at that track a lot, but Shannonville was the other one. Tom, I'll have to check that out. A V8 snowmobile would be awesome. Well, Kyle, what I would do is, and this is our go-to procedure for solving all of this, to find out, to make sure that it's not false knock. Put really, really good gas in it and see if it's still doing it. If it's still doing it, then it's hearing something else. It's not hearing detonation. And if you are hearing detonation, then you need to cure it, and you need to take timing away until it doesn't do it. But if it's hearing something else, it could be hearing other things rattling and taking timing away. And you know that if you put high octane fuel in it and it's still doing it, then it's not knock. Yes, the Mexico 302 blocks are better than a production 5-liter block. Our first sled is out in California at the Don Garland's Museum. Very cool. Tom, did you guys ever run 2-stroke snowmobiles? And did you ever turbocharge any of the 2-stroke stuff? I like most part. I had a lot of good times. I ran the we ran the Motorola Cup up there. We ran World Challenge there. And we didn't run USTCC there, but I like that track. And I like the people in Canada. They were awesome. That's one of the things that my buddy, who is the crew chief, Bernie Van Hammond, and I talk about all the time, is that how fantastic everybody was up there. We went into one of the donut shops, and we're talking to the guy, and the guy's like, "Hey, where are you guys from?" We're like, "We're from California." He goes, "Oh, do you know Pamela Anderson?" Oh yeah, because everybody in California just hangs out with all of the stars and the celebrities. So it would be certain that we live right down the street from her and hang out with her. But he was super cool. I like all the turns, Andy. My favorite turn for all of the tracks is because we did like in USCCC, we did standing starts. So going into the first turn and everybody fighting and your tires are cold, it's it makes it exciting. I do want to do an AMC. I think that would be cool. Say, Tom, yes, the factory 2-strokes from Arctic are turbo. They have the world record, 193 miles an hour. Wow. So I was told that you can't turbocharge a 2-stroke, and I thought that I saw some when I was up there that were done. I've never tried it, but I thought that for sure that was possible. But I remember reading some problems with that. Malibu Grand Prix in the Bay Area used to have cars that had turbocharged snowmobile motors. That would be awesome. 2-stroke stuffing out in Norway. Cool. From my home country. World's most powerful 50 cc's. Yeah, Kyle, just check it out. See if it. Pamela Anderson. Who doesn't like watching people run in slow motion across the beach? So, Tim, you want to put solid lifters from the Duramax engine in an LS? Is that you're talking about a lifter swap? Oh, very similar to turbo. Now, turbo rotaries I do like. Those are awesome. ZX wants to know the 10,000 RPM SHO Taurus you wrote in. What mods it need to make? Want to rev that high? I think, I can't remember if that motor was, they did 3.2 stroker versions of that. This might have been a 3.0. It had stage 2 cams, whatever those were. It definitely had different valve springs. The cams were regrinds that I think the guys from Webb did. They had, it had headers on it. It still had the factory intake manifold, and it had obviously a centrifugal blower with a rising boost curve. So it wanted to run higher than stock anyway with the cams that were there. But with the centrifugal blower, and I think that it was already well past its power peak. We just did it, or they just did it. The guy that I was driving with, Greg, he just did it so that we could see 5 digits. And it was pulled pretty hard. It was pretty cool. Do you have any videos on the Jeep 4-liter? Not yet. I want to do that, though. 24 ring gap is good for boost. I wouldn't run all the boost on it, but you could run some of the boost. Michael, you should run the smaller cam in your 4-wheel drive. Yep, Yamaha designed the SHO Taurus motors. I think that they designed the V6 and the V8, if I remember right. Okay, everyone hit the like button. We're up at 131 versus 193. I think we could do a little better. I like the 2-stroke stuff. I really like the old 2-stroke Grand Prix bikes. those were awesome. Yeah, I've seen the Mercury big block Chevy, Tom. That's pretty cool. Every once in a while, I'll sit down with Brule and he'll tell me about all the boat engines and the packages that they have that are like, I'm thinking that they're 1,200 or 1,300, even then all the way up to 1,500 or 1,600, like package engines that you just buy and put in your really, really expensive boat. Because I think that the motors are, I don't know, are they several $100,000? I think that's insane to have that kind of money. The V8 and some Volvo SUV was a Yamaha. So is it the same motor that they used in the Taurus? Or, I mean, I know Yamaha contracted with a bunch of people, but. I remember driving the V8 version of the Taurus. Those guys let me drive one and take it up to, where did we race it at? At Laguna Seca. We took it up to an open track event or something up there. And I got to take people for rides because we were doing some instructing, and I got to take people. So we filled the whole car up with people and took them up through the corkscrew and stuff. It was pretty exciting. Off topic, missed a few lives and watch your videos on single plane EFI intake. Thinking about doing the Holley single plane EFI on my twin S366 5.3. Unless you're looking at running a really high RPM, you could do better than that. All of the longer runner EFI things will make more power up to, I don't know, 6,500 or 7,000 compared to that single plane. So take a look at the Cathedral Port head or intake test, and you can see that the single plane is going to lose a lot. Now, maybe if you want to, maybe if you're having a traction problem or something, that might be a good idea. But all of the factory Trailblazer SS or LS6, the Dorman, the Fast, all of those will make much more average power and make the turbo respond better. Oh, I want to show, I can actually show you that. Mark wanted to know how the turbo 4200, and I just was sent over, Jason, my buddy Jason, sent me over some photos. So hopefully you guys can see this. Can you see that, Mark? It is a 6-into-1 going into a 3-inch V-band. So then I can V-band to whatever flange I want, and that will work good. Here's another angle. Can see bundle of snake, 6-into-1. And then we also have a setup to run. We have the stock exhaust manifold with the factory pipe basically, and then a U-bend that comes up with the same kind of thing with a 3-inch V-band, and then I can mount the turbo kind of wherever I want. That's what we'll start with, and then we'll use that for the you know, in case Lucky and 20. Oh, unstable connection. Come on, stay with me. Yeah, I saw the Neutron engine, the Honda K Series V8 variant. I think that's really cool what that guy's doing. I've never done a VK45. Is that, are you asking if the header is heat wrapped? No, it's not right now. Let's see. Any chance there could be an aluminum single plane against a composite single plane? That test has been done with the intake manifold that the guys from AFR used to make, and it does that. That's why I want to do a video on heat soak, because the charge temperature doesn't really change with that. Andy's saying that the 4200 should be able to match the 4.8. I don't. That's going to be close. It's rated kind of at the same power level, so we think I think it's going to be right about there. We think it's going to be in the 330, 340, 3 or so range when we run it NA. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm still beating street cars with my CBR 750. Nice. Have you ever tried the megaphone type of collector? No, we could on this, because this is actually also going to be the NA header. Although I might get one of those OBX ones as well. Yeah, Kevin, a guy did that with the Hayabusa. They made the Hayabusa V8s. You want a single plane just for looks? That's good. You know, more power to you. But yeah, you want to. Most people that run single planes are running fairly high RPM. Magic Stick 3. I've never run that camshaft, but if you just tell me the specs, I can kind of tell you what it's going to do. Composite doesn't heat soak. Is that a question? No, the thing is that the temperature of the thing that you're passing the air through, the air passes by so fast that it doesn't have time to change the temperature of the air. Because if you do the calculations on how fast it's going, it also has a boundary layer between the very small part of the air that is touching what's hot and all the rest of the airflow. So there's not a lot of time for heat to transfer from the hot intake manifold into the air. Now there is at part throttle and stuff, but there's not at wide open throttle when the airspeed's very high. You can and other guys will know this is the example that I always use. If you have a flame and you wave your hand through it really fast, nothing happens. Your hand doesn't get hot. If you put your hand in there for a long time, then it does get hot. But if the airspeed's really high, there's no time for the heat to transfer to your hand. And it's the same thing with the air going through the intake manifold. Did he just hold the camera to a camera? And if there would have been a picture of a camera on that picture, we would have went into an infinite loop. That's because I'm not clever enough to be able to post it up on the side and do all that. Hopefully I'll get there, but I'm not there yet. If you could swap in any motor into your favorite muscle car, which would it be? Well, I'll tell you, I would really like to run the 4200 in the Nova that I have, and I'd also like to run a number of other motors in that Nova. The Cadillac and the Buick and all that would be cool. Those have kind of been done. I'd like to put the 3800 in there, and I'd also like to put the 2.4 liter Honda K series in there, just because it's different. I mean, I know that an LS works fantastic, and if you want to go out and run easy 10s or 9s or whatever you want to do, that's a really easy way to do it, and it will do that. It will go out and do that all day long. But when you go to like LS Fest and you lift the hood of every car and it's an LS, yeah, I want to see something different. High pressure CO2 to keep the impeller spinning. So are they aiming the CO2 then at the impeller wheel, or are they injecting it in the exhaust after the impeller? 238, 242, 600, 112. That's a pretty good size camshaft. I don't think that fits in stock piston to valve clearance for any of the LS stuff. So that's got to be something that you run with a with something that has valve relief in it, right? What was the downfall of the Cadillac Northstar? You may know better than I have. I've only seen them run on the chassis dyno with the guys at Westech, on mostly on sand rails and stuff. But guys were saying that they lose head gaskets and stuff. You ever do any OG Quad 4? No, I did see one in the wrecking yard that I really wanted badly, but I haven't done one yet. Yeah, I don't know, Tim. That 4200's pretty tall, but every Nova really should have a hood scoop, I think, or no hood at all. My only 85 gripe is if you only tune for it, you're committed to trailering the car. Why would you have to trailer the car? Lots of people drive their cars on the 85 here. An LS3 stroker and a Saturn Sky, that's a good combination. I got death threats for attempting to put an AMC 360 into a 71 Skylark. That's perfect. Mark, that's a good point. The first thing you're going to get asked is, what is it? I know, and that's why you want it in there. You want people to talk about it, and you want to help them learn stuff. The guy that Jason, the guy that did the headers, was just asking me, what engine is this? Where did this come from? Is this a Chevrolet? Yeah, the Magic Stick is from Texas Speed, right? Yeah. A 2.8 or a 3.1 or a 3400 would all be good, Jonathan. Can you get a 4.3 liter V6 to rev to 10,000? Yes. Just takes a lot of money. Do tight radius turns hurt a dry EFI manifold? It depends on how tight they are. It doesn't usually hurt the reflected wave, but it can hurt flow. I really like you don't have to sell me on the Quad 4 HO deals. I'm a believer. Yeah, the Beretta had them. The 442 had them. Those were cool motors. I raced one in Olds Calais in it was a showroom stock motor. I think it was actually a World Challenge motor or a World Challenge car. The E85 is much better than, Christopher, the E85 is much better than running pump gas. If you're running 91 octane or 93 octane, depending on where you are, there's the E85 you can make 1 million more horsepower with. I don't know about a sleeper cam, George, for an LS1. We know what all the cams do. As you go up and make more power, it's going to have it's going to change the idle. Oh, Rick, yeah, you did send me a picture of that Sky. I like those. Did you ride on the salt flat CUDA with the turbo Hemi 4-cylinder? No, I didn't. I should have, though. That sounds cool. What are your thoughts on a stroked LS for boost, like a 5.3 board and stroke to 383? Gino, most people don't need that. Like if you can take a 5.3 and make 1,000 horsepower, that's all you need to do. You don't have to make it a 383 to do that. And making it a 383, you're going to have to bore it out to 3905, and you're going to put a 4-inch stroke in it. I wouldn't do that if I was going to run boost. I wouldn't make the cylinders thinner, and you don't need the extra stroke to make that work. Yeah, chirp second gear, old Deuce. Yeah, the sloppy stage 2, Jevin, is certainly a better a better price point. UPS Mech, did you talk to Mark? Mark might have some standalone stuff. I know, Philip, it was 5 hours. It was a long time. Okay, I got 4 minutes, so I got to get going. If it was your daily driver, truck, stock converter, no key, or what would be your cam choice? Yeah, I would run. If I have a daily driver, and because I have a 4L60E transmission, I would put a small cam in. I'd put like a BTR torque cam or a stage 1 truck cam in a 5.3. The 4200 is running with Megasquirt, yes. I don't know why you'd want to put a muffler before the turbo. Mark, I think UPS Mech Johnson asked about the standalone. Old Deuce, I've never used that Rust-Oleum Farm implement paint. That would be good. I need something for the, I'm going to do the, I think the next thing I'm going to do on the Nova is the trunk. So I want to put something in there. Although I got the splatter paint just because I like the finish on it, and it looks, you know, factory fresh. The Megasquirt might also be able to be used on the 3800 too. And if we can use it on other stuff, I will definitely use it. You know, it might solve problems that when we have weird trigger patterns. Aaron, I'd have to have somebody else do that episode with me because I'm not really a torque converter guy. Dylan, you'll be talking about the Aerotech cars that Batten and Fueling did with the Quad 4 stuff. Would love to see some valve float with some of these big time YouTubers with ultra slow-mo. Ryan, have you seen, I've seen, Comp Cams used to show us some valvetrain with high-speed cameras, and it's amazing. I mean, even at 6,000 RPM, to watch the valve go up and down, to watch the lifters basically come out and separate and then go back into the retainer, and do that like all day long, basically. It's amazing that they even stay together. And this was on a fairly smooth ramp, like street cam. It wasn't even crazy. I got to see some Spintron testing when I was back at Brian Tooley Racing. It's really cool stuff. It's really good information. Rick, thanks. I will need at least a gallon because I need to fill in some of the holes. Matt, I don't know about a 500 horse trans on an LS motor. Maybe a 4L80 probably is what most guys are using. Yeah, Tim, I agree. The spring oscillation is really, really weird. Yeah, Billy's got good stuff. I like Beehive Springs. The Beehive Springs, I think, get a bad rap for a lot of guys. The conical springs are also very cool. The thing that people don't like about single springs like that is that there's no secondary saver spring. So if you break one, there's nothing to keep the valve up, and then bad things happen. Going to go back to your old videos. What would you recommend for a stock LS1 for a cam? Depends on how much power you want to make, but you know, you could go with something small like a stage 1 truck cam, or you could go with something like that 224, 232 crane cam that works really well to make even more power. Yes, we have more likes than watches. Nice. Mark, I don't know yet. I don't know when we're running. And I have to get going. Thank you guys all for showing up, Dinosaur. And I hope you guys all got a chance to watch the video on the Moonshine, because that, you know, some tests are just funner than others, and that one was awesome. So I have more stuff coming up. Hopefully we have the 8,000 RPM deal. I've got a bunch of testing on the L83 and the LT1 and the L86. And we also have, that I haven't done anything on yet, is the cylinder head test, where we did the 243 and the 862 and the 862 big valve and the 862 with chamber work and the 862, and I'm getting all blurry, and the 862 with mild hand porting. And so all of that stuff is coming up too, which is very, very cool. Thank you guys for showing up. I will see you tomorrow.